How's everyone doing? I'm doing very well. I really want to say a sincere thank you to all of you guys coming out tonight. And I want to also say a huge thank you to Netflix and to the Russo brothers, Agbo, for partnering up and doing this event. Here's the thing, and I'll be very brief. I know you guys all just want to see the movie and get to the Russo brothers. The thing I just want to say is this movie is are there kids in this theater? Yeah, I was gonna say, this movie is a fucking movie. Like, this is not something you want to listen. I love Netflix, but this is not a movie you want to watch on your TV. This is a movie you want to see on the big screen. There's 9 action set pieces in this movie. It's like a typical Marvel movie has 4. This thing is crazy, and you're gonna be super happy you saw this tonight on a huge screen and getting to see Joe and Anthony talk about how they brought it to life. I'm really looking forward to talking to them after the movie, and I'm just curious. The Russo brothers and I did and the answer's probably no, but we did a Q&A here years ago in New York City for Winter Soldier or what was it, Civil War that we did it? So was anyone in that theater at IMAX for Civil War when we did that Q&A? Wow. I was gonna say that was an awesome event at IMAX, and hopefully tonight's gonna rival that. Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for coming out, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys after the movie, and I really hope you enjoy it. I'm confident you will. Later. How's everyone doing? Before the movie started, I said this is a fucking movie. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe and Anthony Russo.
So impressive.
We'll have 2 microphones.
2 mics.
Awesome.
I'm gonna talk like this.
Hey. Here we are in the Paris Theater. Amazing.
You guys, I said this before the movie started. Was it Winter Soldier or Civil War that we did?
Civil War?
We did the IMAX screening of Civil War here at either the 34th Street Theater, and that was before the Avengers movies, back when, early days of Marvel.
Mm-hmm. When Marvel was struggling and was trying to find its footing before.
Was anything gonna work? Who knows?
Right. Before we get started for real, I want to give a huge thank you to you guys for doing the Q&A.
Of course.
Huge thank you to Netflix for doing this. And also, I want to thank Netflix for financing the movie, because these movies on this scale are really hard to make nowadays.
Very difficult to get made. I'll go into that in a second. I just want to thank all the people in here tonight, because Anth and I are film fans. We've talked about this 100 times. We grew up loving movies. The experience that we had as brothers, sharing in films, talking about them ad nauseum, cracking jokes about them, deconstructing them. It's really the reason we became filmmakers, is to try to hand back to audiences the feelings that we had growing up. So we really appreciate your support, and we're glad you're all here tonight. So thank you.
Sometimes, and so I'm going to go backwards in time, if you guys can indulge me for a second. It was the summer of 2019. We were in Hall H at Comic-Con, and I opened the panel up asking you a very simple question: are you interested in doing Secret Wars?
I think, by the way, you were the first son of a bitch to ask us that. You started all of this.
And now this is the probably the 15th Secret Wars question we've answered today.
Today. Just today. 15th today.
And if you want to see this is online. It's on something called the YouTube. And you can see the Q&A, and I peppered you for like 5 questions in a row about that. So I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm just going to say, except for this, obviously, everyone in this audience would love to see you do it, but you also run a studio, Agbo.
That's right.
And you have so much material that you guys are producing and directing and everything going on with you guys. Is Secret Wars even a remote possibility?
He just said, I'm gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, no, I wasn't.
But I'm gonna
leaving it
circle
alone.
back to it one more time. Here's the thing. We get asked this question all the time, are we gonna return to Marvel? And we always answer truthfully that we would love to work with them again because they're good friends of ours. We love them. We had 10 years of really good times working together. So we answer truthfully. People ask us, well, if you go back to Marvel, what would you do? And, our love of comic books is based on our childhood. Secret Wars was the event series when we were kids. So naturally we answer, well, it would be awesome to make Secret Wars. Now, are we talking about it with Marvel? No, we're not. I have no idea what's going on in Phase 4 or 5. We have zero idea what Kevin is about to announce at Comic-Con. We are focused on our company, Agbo. We're focused on a lot of projects. We're about to start production with Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt on a project this October called The Electric State.
Written by Steve Marcus.
Steve Marcus.
And Chris Marcus.
Chris Marcus. Yes. We've been talking for 4 days straight.
But I wanted to mention that since it's all things
But
Marvel.
to just put the Secret Wars thing to best, Ben, we're answering these questions truthfully. It doesn't mean that anything is actually happening. We have no idea whether Marvel has any interest in making Secret Wars. We're not trying to manifest it because those Infinity War and Endgame were so difficult to make that you would we would have to do some soul searching.
Okay, next question.
I'm just trying to be honest.
No, let's switch off to the next thing. I know you guys are huge fans of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Huge. So I have to ask you, is that IP?
No. In truth, it's lined up right after Secret Wars.
Would you like us? Would we like to make sure? Sure. Are we talking about it? No.
Sure. How would you rank between, is it Star Wars and Empire is your number one? This is actually completely new.
Empire is number 1, Star Wars is number 2, Jedi is number 3, Rogue is probably number 4.
Where's after that?
No, where's after that?
I do want to ask you, though, for people that don't realize, Agbo is your studio. And I am curious, what is it like trying to run a studio while also being filmmakers and making these huge movies that take, years to pull off?
It's hard.
Well, the truth is we've been really fortunate in the fact that we always say this, Joe and I work as a team, so we're hyper aware of the process of collaboration and the filmmaking process. We love that about it. And we've been able to develop an amazing team over the years, and that is basically how we're able to have a company like Agbo and to be able to have more of a capacity outside of directing to also produce.
I'm just laughing because I know how this shit works. We just ranked our favorite Star Wars films, and all the headlines tomorrow are going to be Russo brothers hate the prequels. I know what's coming.
I think it's going to be, here's how Agbo works.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hit a lot of different points. We have, there's only a finite amount of time with you guys.
Yes, of course.
People. Jumping into why we are actually here today. Ryan Gosling has never made a movie like this before. How the F did you...
And I don't know that he will again.
Until Secret Wars.
But I am serious. How the F did you get him? Because he doesn't make movies like this.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, we're Gosling fans just like everyone else, right? Drive is an incredible film that I've seen 30 or 40 times, being a movie junkie. I have a bunch of films on my phone that when I'm stuck on a plane, I would just start watching, and Drive is one of them. He is very picky, but he's also reached a point, I think, in his life where he is interested in exploring, bigger movies. Because as you can see, he did this with us. He embraces Kenergy, and he's doing playing Ken and Barbie. He's about to go do The Fall Guy. So he is really transitioning. I think he has drank the let's go make big movies Kool-Aid. And it was awesome. It was awesome to introduce him to that style of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And he was incredibly committed to the movie.
And look, as you have all just seen, like we were trying to find a different way into what a spy action film could be. We were trying to style it around this interesting idea, at least to us, of a lead character who, look at the genres, has things like Bond and Mission Impossible. There's sort of like these sort of iconic series in the genre where you have these very flamboyant lead characters. We were trying to do somebody who didn't want to be there. This sort of working class guy who grew up in an abusive home, who, his only way out of prison was to be conscripted into the CIA.
Which then abused him as well, and he had no interest in the glamorous aspects of being a spy. In fact, he's just a killer. And I think that's sort of the John Woo influences on it. Like, this is a very existential lead hero who just wants 5 minutes of freedom before he's killed, before he dies in action. And I think Gosling loved that aspect of the character.
And also for us, it was like, well, who can play this guy who wants to live in the gray, who doesn't want to be seen, who doesn't even want to be there, but is incredibly proficient at what they do and is incredibly effective at what they do. But his superpower is, of course, his anonymity and his ability to disappear.
With limited dialogue.
Yeah, and here's Ryan Gosling, who's like a master of minimalism, who perhaps more than any other actor out there can convey an immense amount of inner life, intelligence, emotion, charisma, by doing very little as an actor, and we're all enthralled by it. So it seemed like the perfect marriage of actor and character. And once he popped into my head for the role, we couldn't shake it. And thank God we ended up getting him, because I don't know where we would have gone afterwards.
I'm so curious because when I've seen the movie a few times with audiences, and everyone laughs at the Ken line, especially with Barbie coming up. So you didn't have any idea when you were making this that he was going to...
None. We manifested.
I mean, it sounds like
you're welcome.
This sounds like we're answering the Secret Wars question, right? Like we're lying through our teeth. But it's true. It literally predated any involvement of Barbie on his part.
What do you wish, these are some different kind of questions, what do you wish more people knew about directing a big movie in Hollywood?
That it's hard. That, they're very complicated to make, they're tough. You have to take into account, you look at everyone in this room, you all have different opinions about everything you watch. Anthony and I have learned over the years that, the best path to happiness is to make movies that we love and we want to watch, and then share them with the world and hope other people want to watch it too. But you also have to remember that the audience, there's an audience that exists outside of this theater and outside of New York and outside of the East Coast and then outside of the US. And once you start traveling the world like we did making the Marvel films, you get a real perspective on how the rest of the world views stories coming out of Hollywood, that you crave representation, and the kinds of stories that they like to be told. And that's where Anthony's brains are at now, is how do we help build global community, because stories bind people together in a way that very few things can, at a time when there is a lot of manufactured divisiveness. So it's really important to us to try to tell stories that bring people together all over the globe, and not just here in New York or here in the US.
What is actually a lot more expensive to shoot than people realize? What is actually a lot more expensive to shoot than people realize?
Everything.
Boy,
It's expensive to shoot movie stars.
it is.
There's a lot that comes with it.
For instance, Robert Downey, right? Robert's incredible. He's one of the best actors on the planet, but he is expensive to shoot.
All the good ones are.
All the good ones are. There's a lot that comes along with it. So when we would work with Robert, we would have to compress him into a schedule, you know, so that we could afford to actually have him in the movie.
I think a lot of, let me move on, but yes, I
You
don't
can
want to.
smell where this one's going?
No, I know some stuff and I don't want to say it in a public setting.
Okay.
What was the last movie or TV show that you guys were really obsessed with?
Stranger Things.
Straight. So I haven't gotten to the end yet.
We met the Duffers, so Stranger Things came out, and I started watching it on a Saturday, season 1. And it came out on a Friday, I don't know if I remember, but I watched it the day after it came out. Somebody said, you gotta watch this. And I watched the whole thing in like, I don't know, 12 hours. I took a bathroom break, made a sandwich, and then I called them the next day, and I said, listen, I'd never met him, it was a cold call, I just said, I just gotta call you and tell you this is the most interesting thing I've seen tonally. It's complex, it's rich, it's in a really interesting world. You built a universe here, your cast is incredible, your shot design is excellent, everything about it, the mood, the tone. And we became good friends, and I've just been rooting for them for the last few years. And when we got to season 4, I texted them about a week ago, and I said, congratulations, you have graduated to the biggest filmmakers in the world. I don't care if it's film or TV, you watch that season, that season 4, and you go, there are very few people that could pull off something at that scale, with that level of charm and wit and entertainment and drama, and just look at how they've taken over pop culture in the last month.
Perhaps they should do Secret Wars.
Wait, did you just say they're doing it?
Perhaps.
Oh, shit. I take that back.
I'm just going to say that the Duffers told me that they are not doing anything until they finish season 5, and that their agents don't send them material anymore.
They shouldn't, because they're exhausted, and that's where you said, how hard is this? They're exhausted. And I think, we all know the pressure, Game of Thrones, of sticking the landing. And these guys have a lot of, I can't say anything. These guys have a lot of work ahead of them to make sure that they meet your expectations. And you guys have tough expectations for season 5.
By the way, this is not where I was gonna go, but I agree with you. The ending of Game of Thrones was the biggest disappointment
Ever.
ever.
Frosty always knows where to go for the headlines.
It was,
Listen, here's the thing
that
that's
show.
I feel like we should pass the microphone around and see what everybody thinks of that.
There is amazing storytelling and filmmaking throughout that entire series.
Oh, I agree.
It is very, very, very hard to pull all of that together in a satisfactory way. And I don't think you can fault them for making the choices that they made. That was the story that they wanted to tell. Maybe it didn't line up with the consensus. But that's the story they wanted to tell. So you know what? Watch it all the way up through like the last 3 episodes.
And not to go off on this, but I think they made an incredible show. I was very just disappointed with the way they wrapped it up. But moving on, this movie has 9 action set pieces.
Yeah.
Which is, maybe you should explain in a Marvel movie how many action set pieces would you have?
Usually about 4.
Less than, yeah.
In the 4 range. So we got through 4 of the set pieces on this and looked at each other and went, oh my God, we're not even halfway through it. But the exercise on this movie was to make a relentless, excessive action movie where, old school, where you just forget to eat your popcorn or you put your phone down and you're engaged from the minute the first frame pops up.
Yeah, so from day one, we were designing the movie that way. We sort of, and by the way, we were inspired to sort of take that endeavor on by the novel, which is very much structured in that way, where it's a gauntlet of action. And we wanted to see how far we could push that, and we love action, and we're thrilled with what we were able to do with this.
Do you find that one of you is better with camera and one is better with actors? Or do you feel like you're both extremely proficient in both aspects of being on set?
we both kind of, we don't really have formal divisions. I always say it like this, I think every directing team probably functions differently from every other directing team, in the same way that any individual director functions differently from other individual directors, you know? It's all a function of personality and taste and style and what your interests are, and some people lean one direction, some people lean the other direction. Joe and I are pretty fluid. We don't really have sort of an individual area that we sort of key on. We like everything. So we kind of flow back and forth.
What was the last big disagreement you had while making a movie, and what was it about?
Probably what topping to put on our pizza.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably. Or whether we're gonna do Secret Wars. Two more down the line.
No, but have you guys, for example, making this movie, are there ever moments where you guys are not in unison when it comes to the story or how you want to film something? And how do you
Every day.
Every day. Well, that's actually part of our process. That's what we kind of consider our secret sauce, which is like, no, we don't agree. Like, our whole process is to like, and this is how we learned how to be filmmakers from the beginning. It's just like, we had a passion for movies. We talked about them constantly. That ended up into evolving into an interest in figuring out how to make movies. We learned how to make movies together. And so we have like this kind of nonstop dialogue that is how we sort of figure out what we want to do. And it's very much point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. And we like not being in sync, because it's in the tension of that we figure out what idea really unites us.
When you went to Netflix and with this film, or however that worked out with you guys in Netflix, when you're in those initial meetings, you're talking to Scott Stuber or whoever it may be at Netflix, are they asking you in the room, hey, if this is a hit, do you have what's your plan for the future? Or do the studios and streamers sort of like, does that not even come up?
No, I think, Anth and I, just because the way we work, we like long form storytelling. He used to carry around Lord of the Rings like it was his Bible when we were kids. And so we like universe building. We like getting lost in a story. It's up to the audience to tell you whether they want to see more or not. We've learned that lesson. But when we do develop, we develop in a way where we're sitting in a room and it's us and Marcus McFeely and we're all shooting the shit. And somebody goes, oh, it'd be interesting if we do a second one, if this character did X. And we'll go, oh, yeah, that would be interesting. So you have ideas floating around, but nothing's codified, nothing's solidified. You have to put all of your effort into making the movie that you're making work, or there isn't going to be a future. So, but there are loose threads in this one. There's a character referred to as the old man that you never meet, and so there's potential there. But there are no guarantees in life.
You have some cool drone shots in this, and Michael Bay used extensive drone shots in Ambulance. And
I like how you went from drone shot to Michael Bay.
well, there was a purpose to this, because you did some drones, they did a lot of drone shots. How much do you think drone shots are going to be used by other? How much?
Hopefully this is it. Hopefully we just put a fork in it. Look, what we were going for in this movie was kinetic energy. We like controlled chaos. Whether you want to admit it or not, whether you're a cinephile who is still vigilant about the golden age of auteur cinema in the 70s being the defining factor of how a story should be told, your attention span is changing every day. You pick up your phone, it's changing. The way you can process visual information is changing. You're getting better at it, you're getting faster at it, you get bored with things quicker, and if you have kids, they're twice as bored as you, right? So, Anth and I are compelled by, where visual language is going. And, we found this tool called the speed drone, which is very small, moves at about 60, 70 miles an hour. And when you're working on a movie like this, where it's a travelogue and you have to go to location to location, you only have a few options about how you announce that new location. Nolan and Fincher do those slow moving, searching down shots that, give you some abstract geography and then give you a title card. Or Spielberg would give you a very grand, the best angle possible, on Prague. We didn't want the movie to slow, so we said, you know what, let's use these frenetic drone shots to stitch together as a new kind of language for an establishing shot, to stitch these sequences together so you never get a break. How kinetic can we actually make the movie?
By the way, these speed drones can only be operated by this maestro 22-year-old kid who sits there with a VR headset on, doesn't even have a physical line of sight to the drone, and just whizzes it by people's head by with a foot difference. See, it's very scary to watch.
You guys know I like talking about editing. With the films you've made, which film changed the most in the editing room in maybe a way that you didn't expect?
Of the ones we made?
Of every movie we've made.
What changed the most in the edit room? That's a tough one because...
Tough one to answer, honestly.
Because we are, a duo, because we have to collaborate, we talk about everything ad nauseum. And we plan significantly so that we can throw the plan out, but we still do have a plan. And we've done so much. We put our 10,000 hours in television. We did a lot of television for 10 years. And we're just really efficient now at our choices. So I just find like we're at this place where, we collect what we think we need and we move. And, if we don't think we have it, we reshoot. It's not like, all right, let's throw it out and mix it up. Let's try to get closer to the target of what we were trying to hit, and we'll come up with like a week's worth of very targeted reshoots. We do that on everything.
And I would say the most extreme example of that would be Infinity War and Endgame, because we shot those movies back to back. So while we were editing Infinity War, we still, Endgame was still a ways off. So we were learning things about it while we were shooting Infinity War. We were learning things about editing Infinity War that was informing us about what we wanted to do with Endgame in a big way. And that sort of continued all the way through the post process, because those movies sort of have obviously such a communication with one another. So there's an adage in filmmaking that we've always sort of really found is very true, which is like, you make a movie 3 times over. When you write it, when you shoot it, when you edit it. Each phase is a brand new film. That's different from the previous iteration of what that may be, because a script is a certain thing. When you're collecting footage on set, that's a certain thing. And then when you have to put the footage together, that's a certain thing. They're all very different. So, we were going through the arc of that learning process while we were making Infinity War, and Endgame was trailing behind that arc. So as Infinity War was changing, Endgame was changing.
Can I ask a question of the audience?
Of course.
I'm just curious. By applause, I just want you to tell me, of Infinity War and Endgame, who liked Infinity War better than Endgame? Who liked Endgame better than Infinity War? It kind of feels like it's down the middle.
I view them almost as, I know this sounds crazy, but I almost view them as like one movie.
They are one movie.
Yeah,
it was a trick question, and you all failed.
Looking down. So you have 2 huge action set pieces in this that I'd like to touch on real quick. One is the plane sequence, and one is the Prague sequence. I want to know, did you see Uncharted and say, we can one-up this?
No.
This was in development. I mean, that's from the book. We were just being faithful to a really cool set piece in the book.
We'll talk a little bit about that. Those 2 huge sequences. For people that don't realize, what actually goes in behind the scenes to bring sequences like that to life? Because that's not just a casual afternoon, in terms of let's go shoot that plane sequence.
Yeah, no, I mean, those take months and months and months of work, where you have to, our process is we sort of start from a conceptual phase where we're laying out a script, we explore it through the screenwriting process, and then we start to bring other collaborators into the process about what the movie can be, what these sequences can be. And that, with an action film, that specifically involves our cinematographer, our camera operator, our visual effects supervisor, our stunt coordinator. We have conceptual artists that we work with that are very inspiring to us, storyboard artists, animators. We animate sequences of the movie to just feel out what they can be, what they feel like. It's a whole team of people who are sort of, I always call it like we're making the movie before we make the movie. So we go through a process of exploring what these scenes can be, where we can take the character, and we use every tool we can to sort of visualize what that can be and sort of demo what that can be to ourselves. And sometimes that includes staging a group of stunt performers in a stunt gym for a sequence of a fight. Sometimes it involves animating a certain sequence that can't be achieved any other way. We take all of that and we mash it together, and we sort of go through several iterations over many, many months, and we sort of figure out the best idea, the best plan. We always say best idea wins, no matter where it comes from. That's our process. And then we slowly develop a plan so that you go into production, because these movies are so expensive to make, and when you're sitting there on set to execute these things, it requires sets and equipment and etc. that sometimes it takes weeks and weeks, if not months, to construct and make. So it's a very long lead time to be ready to shoot and execute this stuff. So by the time you shoot, you want a really clear plan, very specific plan. So then we go into production with that plan, and we throw it all out when we get to set, because we all of a sudden we're there with everybody, and you start to discover new things as you're executing the plan. So it's very much a flow between this really well thought out plan that has been baked over many, many months, and then sort of what opportunities we're seeing in the moment to sort of make it better, make it more interesting or fun to us. And then we kind of step through it that way. But it's a bizarre process that's incredibly elaborate.
Just another Thursday.
Yeah, just another Thursday. Very much, very much.
That was great.
Touche.
We're almost out of time, and you guys know I'm a fan of your work, and I know you mentioned a little bit, but I want you guys to maybe talk a little bit more about the Electric State, and what is it about that, your upcoming movie that you're filming in October? Can you mention again who's in it, and what was it about this material that said that we want to do this?
It's based on a graphic novel, a gorgeous graphic novel. If you haven't read it, you should leave here and buy it. You'll love it, and it's heartbreaking. The visuals are heartbreaking. I mean, they're just stunning. It stars Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt and a host of others. We're gonna go shoot in October. It's about a 5-6 month shoot. We don't want to give too much away. I think it's better if you're surprised in the theater. But it's set in an alternate universe, 1990s, where robots are ingrained in the culture in a way, but they're very naive, and there's a lot of commentary about humanity versus technology in the movie.
Yeah, Marcus and McFeely wrote the script, and it was a project they had a lot of passion for. And I think, The Gray Man has a little bit more of a mature, sort of real-world tone to it, whereas The Electric State kind of goes back to that sort of fantasy sci-fi world that we were sort of swimming in together on with the Marvel films.
This might be my last question. You guys obviously run AGBO, and you have projects at AGBO. What can you tease people about what you guys are producing and developing over there?
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Part two.
We're announcing it tonight, along with Secret Wars.
No, it's gonna play before Secret Wars. It's gonna be like a companion piece. And we have a lot going on. I mean, we've been working on, we have about 3 or 4 more projects that we're working on with Marcus McFeely that are of giant scale. Feel very fortunate that we're able to make movies in the $200 to $300 to $400 million range, where we can bring you big, imaginative, large scale stories. One of which is Battle of the Planets, which we've been working on for years, was our favorite anime growing up. We also want to keep moving ahead in the original idea space. We have another giant idea that we're working on with Marcus McFeely that's completely original, that's in the sci-fi fantasy space as well. So lots of big ideas, lots of big movies, lots of real potential for universe building.
Part of the reason after we completed Endgame, Joe and I formed a company with Marcus and McFeely, and part of our reason for doing that was we enjoyed that sort of universe narrative building with them so much, and we wanted to continue to explore that form, and those are the projects that we've been developing together for the past couple of years. Now, a lot of these movies, The Gray Man is a little bit different because this movie's been in our lives for a decade on and off, and it's set in the real world, so it's a little more accessible, it's a little more easy to actualize because of our length of time with the material and the fact that it's sort of grounded in reality. This other work that we've been developing with Marcus and McFeely that's more fantasy-based, sci-fi-based, that stuff takes years to develop because you do a lot of sort of development and exploration in order to figure out what the world can be, because you're building it from the ground up, every little detail of the world. So anyway, that's the kind of work that's coming because we needed a few-year run-up in order to be ready to make that stuff. And Electric State is the first of those projects.
I just want to remind everyone real quick that if you enjoyed this movie, please say something on social media, encourage people to watch it because there's a lot of stuff out there, and just throwing that out there. But on that note, I want to give a huge thank you to Netflix and the Russo brothers for doing this too.
Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thanks to you all. Thanks for being here.